for downloading this episode of Cork Talk with me, Tim Atkin. A weekly conversation with some of the most famous people in the world of wine. Sarah Hwang studied psychology at university in the United States, but moved into the wine business after her parents created a new estate in Tokaj, Domaine Királyudvar, in the late 1990s, and bought the historic Domaine Huet in the Loire Valley in 2003. In charge of the latter estate since 2012, she is a lover of Chenin Blanc in all its forms, as well as an insightful guide to the terroirs and very different vintages of Vouvray. Hello, Sarah, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having me.
It's brilliant to have you on. I mean, it's not just one of my favourite wines, but two of them. So we're going to talk about these two amazing estates. But let's begin with a little bit about you, your background, because you were brought up in New Jersey. Your parents are both from the Philippines. Just tell us about the link with wine and food. Was that a big part of your life growing up?
Yeah, it was always a big part of my life. I was born in New Jersey. Both parents were born in the Philippines of Chinese descent. And kind of all over China. And so we're a pretty nomadic family, I would say. Each generation has been born in different places for a number of generations now. And my father actually went over to the U.S. when he was 15 for his studies. Both of my parents are brilliant. My father had his PhD by the time he was 23 in physics.
Wow.
And so along the way, when you're 15 moving across the world, you're discovering yourself and you're in a whole new place. And at some point, one of his professors actually introduced him to wine. And it was something that he very quickly got into, right? I think everybody kind of comes into wine and enjoys wines for different reasons. And it changes as you go through that journey. But my father, it was wine is this combination of all the different hard sciences that come together to create something purely enjoyable. Variables are always changing. So the more you know, the more you read, the more you taste. It's almost as if it's the more you know that it's humbling. You don't really know very much. It's very similar to the universe, right? And there was a concentration in astrophysics that my dad was in. And so it was, and it also, wine is enjoyable, right? The point of that is joy and sharing.
Were you brought up as a kid, sharing it with your parents, drinking it? Yeah,
wine was always a part of our dinner table conversation. It's, I was born in 1982. So in the 80s is when, wines are really starting to be brought into the U.S. as well. And so, and serious wines. But they weren't the easiest to get a hold of either. And so it wasn't like every day there was a bottle of wine on the table. But, my parents also lived for a few years in South Africa, in Cape Town. My father got his PhD, was a teacher there at the University of Cape Town. My mom got her master's there. So there's the wine route or route, as whoever says it. And they found out very quickly there that my mom had a great palate. And so, there was affinity for big, bold reds, high acid whites, all different kind of sugar levels and types of wine. And so, growing up, my brother and I were accustomed actually to putting our nose in a glass and telling our parents what we smelled and listening to stories, basic, we were young, but basic stories about the different winemaking regions, because the reality is that with any winemaking region, there's a really rich story alongside it, right? And here being in Vouvray and at Domaine Huet, it's often in your face how linked history is to the going on
to what you're doing,
production and everything. Yeah.
Was it always their dream to own a winery? Were they talking about it when they were living in South Africa or when you were growing up?
Yeah, no, I don't. That's it's I think an obvious question, but it's not at all a question I think that applies to my family. I'm the product of the American dream. Anything is possible. You work hard. Hopefully one day you'll reap those rewards. And in a sense, the universe will bring you where you end up, right? and that's really kind of how I'm here today in Vouvray now for almost 15 years full time. But it's more like baby steps. It's step by step and kind of just taking each step as it comes and seeing what you're confronted by in good and bad ways and making those choices. And so I would actually say, no, it wasn't an objective, right? Wine was always a passion for the wine, for the family more than it was an objective.
Got it.
You know, and so it and I think anybody that gets into it, no matter what side, as a consumer, as a sommelier, as a producer, you do go through these different passages of how you appreciate the wines, how you approach them, how you digest them, and how you consider them. And then you find the little niches of what really interests you.
And you ended up where you are. But you studied psychology, didn't you? Not winemaking. Very prestigious. You were at Johns Hopkins, weren't you? Baltimore. Yeah. Robert Parker country. He lives there, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Did you have a career in mind? I mean, presumably you weren't thinking you were going to go into wine.
No, and it goes back to what I was saying. Like it's not really the MO of my family. You know, it's and any kid is like that growing up. What do you want to be? Right? You're always asked that as a kid. And my answer obviously it was astronaut, baker, cashier. I mean, it was the whole gamut. And you know, where I grew up and also going to Hopkins, most of my friends are lawyers and doctors and engineers. And, but there wasn't really any focus on what the next steps would be. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something that I credit my parents for, because I don't think it was the easiest way, you know, as a parent, and I don't have kids, but I would presume I have many, nieces and nephews of friends, but as a parent, you want to see, you know, where your kid's going in the direction. And they were really generous by not imposing that. And there's never been an imposition of what should come next. I'm also the younger child, so there's the right? Independent side of I'm going to do what I'm going to do.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, tell us about Hungary, because you know your family created this domain out of nowhere, really, in Hungary, in Tokaj. And how did it come out? They were on holiday somewhere, weren't you? And you just thought, hey, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, we had the opportunity. So we were accustomed to traveling young because we would go back and see extended family in the Philippines from the U.S. every summer, essentially. And so, you know, those long flights became normal flights. So any other type of flights would just be quick. And so one thing that was always really important growing up is that we were exposed to different cultures in different places. And so vacation time wasn't the most relaxing. It was more enriching. When you're younger, you're a little grumpy about it. But it's something I appreciate so much now that I'm older. But yeah, we went to Budapest in 95, 96, for a spring break trip. And we were on the Buda side. I distinctly remember, and we were having some Tokaj from Tokaj. And it was a 6-foot ocean, and it was just extraordinary for anybody that's had it. And I know you have, Tim. It's one of a kind in its complexity, its intensity, and its purity of place. And my parents stopped us. It was my mom actually who has that palate, and she said, "Hold on." Just think about what this is, because these are from vines that have been essentially abused for decades from the communist regime, when there were tons of chemicals, you know, lots of yields, the soils weren't worked, and these wines are extraordinary. So we got, and that's my dad's side was like, we got to go and see. Let's go.
So you just drove up there, did you, the next day?
So we used to run in one of those little tiny cars, European cars is what we called it at the time. Oh man. And now there's a highway, but we made the 4.5 hour trip up there. And there's not very much between Budapest and Tokaj, even to this day. So there's a little griping along the way. But we get there and we see the Tokaj hills, and it's beautiful, and the energy was sort of unmatched. There's really something about it. And so we knocked on some doors, met some winemakers, met some families, essentially. And my parents kind of looked at each other and said, yeah, let's do this, right? And Hungary had just opened, and there was already quite a bit of investment in Tokaj from foreign investment, I would say.
The Royal Tokaj Wine Company and things like that.
There's Royal Tokaj, there's because there's a Remus, there's Disno, there's
Vegas, Sicilia,
every kind of country had a place, I would say. And so this family of four from New Jersey just decided to cannonball into it, just to see and just to really having zero idea of what it would mean down the road, right? If we didn't start Királyudvar and create Királyudvar, I wouldn't be here today.
Because, you started buying vineyards, right? I mean, some of the great vineyards.
Yeah, we kind of got a sense of where things were. There was a lot of research done, a lot of wine tasting, and decided to kind of go for terroirs that were interesting to us, that were distinct as well.
Were you working with Istvan Sepsi a little bit at the beginning?
Yeah, he was our first winemaker. And then he left, I think, around 2004 to concentrate on his own label.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was, and it's a great, is that not kind of the great first winemaker to have?
He's one of the greats, isn't he?
A real magician.
He was great in the communist period as well, wasn't he? He went on making great wines, that guy.
Yeah. And as soon as kind of the regime collapsed, he had wines ready to go.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes.
And how big is it now? How many hectares do you have?
We have 75 hectares, of which we cultivate about 45. And kind of the idea was like, we want to represent Tokaj for what we think it's all about, which is the 6 Petonios Asu. And above, because once you have Asu, you also have Asu Essentia and Essentia. And then that's where kind of the math scientist side of my family kind of took hold. And it was like, well, if these vineyards can give us such exquisite sweet wines, what could that be in other wine types? And we spent about 10 years or so kind of just discovering what the different terroirs had to offer, what the different wine types could look like, and kind of putting that puzzle together to say, all right, well, this could be kind of our production. We're still learning. There's still kind of new stuff, to learn and to discover. And, but we have essentially the same, we have essentially the same lineup that we do here at Domaine Huet. And I guess our contribution, and somebody brought this up to me, just this year, actually, just in 2026. And I was impressed because we don't think like that, is that we were the first, actually. Now you see a bunch of ferment sec or different types of wine coming out of Tokaj, and we were the first to start doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Which is great.
And the reason we called it's a sec is an homage to our ties here to Vouvray. Because for the dry ferment, we use the same press program as Domaine Huet.
Okay, I want to talk to you later on about Fumint and Chenin and compare them.
Absolutely.
Let's a little bit about Huet, because that's where you are. You spend most of your time. You live there, don't you? I mean, Gaston Huet, one of the great figures of Vouvray in the Loire Valley, died in 2002. Did you ever meet him or not before he passed away?
I didn't. My parents did.
Yeah. So they were talking to him, were they?
Yeah. So and there's a lot of different accounts of how things happened. But Gaston was born in 1910. He moved to Vouvray when he was 18 years old with his parents, Victor and Constance, Anna Constance. So Constance, for whom the wine is named after. And he has an incredible life story that has nothing to do with wine. But, people know him as one, Mr. Huet, Mr. Gaston, as everybody on the team would call him. And where he had, such an enormous impact on the world of wine in Vouvray. And then as the mayor of Vouvray, because he was the mayor from 47 to 89.
Wow.
So he, in 2002, was 92. He had 3 children, none of whom were directly involved with the winery and its day-to-day. or not even, it's just directly involved. It was his son-in-law, Noel Tanguay, that was running the winery for the family. And so they were looking for kind of someone, something, some entity to carry on the legacy of this estate.
And to buy it, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it was a time when the wine world was changing. Domaine Huet had encountered a few complicated vintages, and so, speaking honestly, there was a financial boost was needed, but also more importantly, a continuity, because at 92, what comes next?
And his kids didn't want to take it on, as you've said, basically.
Yeah, they weren't involved, right? Everybody had their own lives, and the next generation wasn't in wine either. And so it's my understanding that there were a number of suitors. But I think that with our, we're a family of four, no more, no less. And with our roots in Tokaj, right? I think that there was also a trust that we would respectfully carry on the really important part of the legacy, which is the demi-sec and the moelleux, the sweeter styles.
It's interesting because I heard you talk about Gaston. You said he understood terroir before anyone. Do you mean that he'd actually acquired parcels, or are you just the difference between them and he was expressing them?
No, he was him and his parents moved to Vouvray in 28 at the end of November 1928. So their first vintage was in 1929, and it was 5.5-6 hectares of old lieu. So we have 3 vineyard sites, 30 hectares, and each of the 3 vineyard sites has a different personality, has a different soil type. The previous mayor of Vouvray, Charles Vavasseur, was somebody that he turned to quite often, as well as Monsieur Fourreau, the grandfather of Philippe Fourreau. It was Charles Vavasseur that had started to speak with him about terroir and the soil types, and might there be an effect. And so when he came back from the war, because he was a POW from 40 to 45, I think he had some time still to ruminate, and his objective was actually to have 3 distinct vineyard sites with different terroirs.
So did he buy 2 more?
So in 1953 he added Clos du Bourg, which is 6 hectares of vines.
Yeah.
And then in 1957 added Le Mont.
Okay, yeah.
So essentially, Huet, as today as we know it, has been like this for the last 70, 75 years or so. And our job is really easy, because we do have 3 different kids that have way different personalities, and express themselves quite differently depending on the vintage, if they do at all. So, so he was a visionary in that, at a time when nobody was really thinking or acting on this concept of terroir. That for him was of utmost importance.
I want to come back to those parcels in a second, but let's talk a little bit about Vouvray, because there'll be some people listening to this who have heard of Vouvray. Just where is it, and what styles of wine does it make? Is it only Chenin Blanc? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Vouvray is in the Loire Valley. It's a winemaking region that often goes overlooked. While it is the largest winemaking region of France, I think it's because in the Loire Valley, just really quickly, there's just everything is on the table. All the different varietals you could think of, all the different winemaking styles, a bunch of different types of terroir. So it's harder to pigeonhole the Loire Valley as a region.
Yeah.
Here in Vouvray, we make Chenin Blanc. So it's white wines. And Chenin Blanc is one of the queen varietals, in my opinion.
I agree.
In that, it's just in that it can make balanced wines, sparkling, still, and from dry to sweet.
Yeah.
And it's not every varietal that can, number one, do that in an elegant, drinkable, enjoyable way. It's sometimes called the plastic varietal, in that it'll take on what you want to show.
Plastic.
And so if
you can mold it.
So if you want to, if there are those who want to impart their winemaking excellence, it will take that on. If you want to add some wood, really anything is on the table. And so I think with Chenin, it's a varietal that really can tell the story of the people behind it. Words don't matter. It's really the wines speak. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, and you've talked about the 3 sites because they're very different. They're also on different soil types, aren't they? And different altitudes as well?
Well, not too much. I mean, the slightly different altitudes, but they're all within a kilometer and a half of each other. So Vouvray is an appellation of 7.5 villages, and we're in the village of Vouvray. And so the vineyard sites are actually quite close. You can see them from each other. But they do have very distinct soil types. So Olieu is this pure brown clay. Everybody kind of grows up playing with clay at some point in their life. And I'm not talking Play-Doh. I'm talking actual clay. And that's Olieu. It's just pure. And what it imparts is its charm. It's kind of Chenin Blanc in its purity, friendly, approachable. Clos du Bourg is that same brown clay, but very shallow. It's right along, I say along the river, but it's about 700 meters from the river. But it's because Vouvray is on the plateau in general. The vines are on the plateau, raised from the river. And so Clos du Bourg is along that, the coteau. And it's the same brown clay, but very shallow. It's from 40 centimeters to about 1 meter deep. So it's very chalky. The subsoil is tuffeau. That's Vouvray. Tuffeau is a limestone, and so the chalk and the limestone absorb heat. The clos of Clos du Bourg is still there. It traps the heat and moisture. So Clos du Bourg is there's more power. There's more texture in its wines. It's a bit cool for school, but in a very suave way, I would say. Yeah. And Le Mans is completely different. It's about 500 meters to the east of Clos du Bourg, and it's a very compact, greenish yellowish tinged clay with flint, with silex. So there's the flint. There's a little bit of quartz. There's a tiny bit of red and yellow jasper. And so the flint deflects the sunlight. Le Mans is naturally just a bit cooler. So it's whereas Clos du Bourg is on the width, Le Mans is on the length. It always has a great backbone. Down the road at some point, you're going to see some smokiness thanks to the flint.
In a way, yeah?
Yeah. And it's the last of the 3 typically to come out of its shell. It's oftentimes also where we're ending harvest.
It's your last picked, yeah?
Typically, not always.
Yeah. And you farm biodynamically. I mean, the estate was biodynamic already when you guys bought it, wasn't it?
Yeah, the wineries never used chemical fertilizers or pesticides. And due to a few chance encounters that Noel had, we started testing with biodynamic farming in 1988. In Clos du Bourg. It was I think it was a half hectare plot on the north side of Clos du Bourg. And kind of right off the bat saw that the vineyards, the color of the vines turned more natural. Like green is just very relative. You could say less green, but just more natural. The juicers were rounder, ripening was more even. And so decided to kind of continue over the next couple of years to convert the entire estate.
The entire estate is biodynamic, yeah?
Yeah. Everything was converted fully in 1990, and we were certified in 1993.
Yeah. Is that challenging in wetter years like 24 or 21 to stick with biodynamics, or do you find that it works equally well?
Listen, I think that's a question that I can't answer. I think that at the root of it, we're all farmers. As grape growers, we are lucky farmers because depending on how we work and what we do, we can kind of control what the market gets or what the market gives us. that said, more challenging or not, I think it's at the base of it, everybody is encountered with a complicated vintage, right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you because we've never used.
You've not done it the other way, right?
We've only done it. It's just how we work.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think so. And I think, and there will probably be a ton of people that don't agree with me, but I think that the challenges that we encounter, especially, since 2003, the climate change, you never know what you're going to get at this point. But those vintages and working with Chenin, there's something really beautiful that comes out of that, because every year the wines are so unique in how they express themselves, right?
Especially from those 3 sites, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, sure, there are times when it is incredibly challenging, like 2024. The yields in 2024 were extremely limited, but we love those wines, right? So I don't know where I would trade, at what point, and it's a question that we ask internally, like at what point is that piece of intervention too much intervention?
Got you. Tell me a little bit about the winemaking style, because Noël Panguet was there a long time. He was there 76 and he took early retirement, I think 2012, which is when you joined full time, wasn't it? Have you carried on his vision? Because you've since had Bernard Berthomé and then Benjamin Joliveau, and you're very involved in setting the parameters of the style, and I think your family is generally. How would you describe the winemaking style? I just wonder how it's evolved, really.
So I think that what is actually really special about the estate is that, Noël, he came back in 1971. He kind of took over the helm in 1976 from Gaston in terms of kind of day-to-day winemaking. It's always been generations working together. To this day, it's always been that. So transitions have actually been quite fluid. And what is actually quite nice, some might say, is that while many things have changed, because if you don't change, you're stagnant, our approach to production hasn't. Our approach to what ends up in the bottle remains very pure. To the extent that it's the 90th anniversary of Vouvray this year, of the appellation of Vouvray, and I've been going through some archives and reading some of Gaston's kind of speeches and his text, and his explanation of how wines are made and which wines are made is exactly what we do today, which is we make what the vintage gives us. We're looking to make ripe, balanced wines, and if that's in a base wine for sparkling, if that's in a sec, a demi-sec, or a premier tree or more, then so be it. And so I think that actually not much has changed since Gaston's departure, since Noël's departure, since Jean Bernard's, to this day. Having said that, circumstances have changed. The climate has changed. Today, we are privileged to have more technology that we use when we can be more precise. It's not just because it's robotic or something, we're gonna take that on. The question is always, are we doing this because it's the best thing to do, or because we've always done it?
Yeah. And are you making more dry wines or not?
No. I don't actually have the breakdown all in all of what our production is by percentage of wine type, because our production changes drastically from year to year.
Okay, I was going to ask.
So in 2021, we only made dry wines. 2022, we made all of the wines. 2023 made sec, demi-sec, moelleux. 24 only dry wines, and 25 we made demi-sec and moelleux. So that's never been the focus. It's because what we produce and how we produce it in a very real way, that's our identity. And I think that it's very important to hold on to that and do the work behind that to make sure that you can keep it.
Yeah. Now, I was reading Beverly Blanning's very good book on the Loire, and you said to her that demi-sec and moelleux styles are the heart and soul of what Vouvray represents. So all things being equal, you'd like to make more demi-sec and moelleux, would you, or not?
Well, all things being equal, I'd like to make everything. I would like to make all the wine types from every vineyard site, because I think that that's the most interesting for us to see how that vintage expresses, how those wines evolve. Every wine that's born of a vintage is a different kid, and it's exciting to see how they evolve over the years. Mm-hmm. I say that because if you were to take really 9 vintages out of 10, I believe to this day, all of the grapes and put them together into a ginormous press, it's going to end up to be a demi-sec or moelleux. And I think that the perspective people have on wines with residual sugar has become it's been turned around in a way where there's a really negative connotation. Mm. And then the wines are really approachable, really drinkable. They finish dry. That's for us the definition of balance, to have the depth on the palate thanks to the residual sugar, but the wines finish dry and can be paired with an assortment of different cuisines and foods.
They age amazingly. I mean, I think I told you I was in Paris last week, and we had an 85 and 95 and an 05, and they were amazing. Mm-hmm. They're all very different, but it was incredible the way they'd aged.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fun for us too. You really never know what's going to happen and at what point. And, and I think that one thing that makes Chenin so special is that, we're the most adaptable to climate change.
Where? Vouvray?
Vouvray or Chenin producers.
Yeah. Because you can make everything.
I believe because it's a varietal that can offer balanced wines, no matter the wine type. And so it really is the focus for us at Harvest, is getting in at the perfect moment.
Yeah.
And I guess to answer your original question, what has changed over the years is, everybody has their own palate, has their own taste buds, has their own energy that they're bringing to it. Mm-hmm. And so what the definition of perfect moment is it might be the difference.
Would you mean when to drink it or when to pick it or whatever?
When to pick it.
Yeah. I mean, is there any other appellation in the Loire that makes Chenin Blanc in so many different styles? I can't think of one. Anjou, maybe? No, not really.
Anjou.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say.
I mean, Savinière doesn't really make sweet wines, does it, in the same way?
Not to my knowledge.
Côte de Léon doesn't really make dry wines.
I mean, but the thing is as well is that Vouvray's changing as well. So the production of sweeter styles is, to my knowledge, diminishing.
Yeah.
Still being produced, but it's diminishing, right? So I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, that could be a climate change thing. It's easier to make dry wines now, maybe. Do you think, or not?
I don't know. I think that I think that we've been hearing for the last 20 years or so that people are drinking dry. We don't know where that started. Where I think that started was a series of dry vintages here in Vouvray, where sweet wines it wasn't possible to produce them.
Because there was no botrytis at all. Yeah.
Well, there was no pasteurizage, there was no botrytis. Yeah. They were just simply dry vintages. And then people were drinking dry, and we heard that. And then that was followed up by pretty intensely complicated vintages where, everybody has teams, and there are risks. And in order to be able to continue, you need to make choices sometimes. And if you're in a situation where you need to make sure that you're selling your wine and you're hearing people are drinking dry, well, then you got to make your dry wines, right? And I think that cycle has continued. So if today we're hearing people are drinking dry, I'm not so sure that's the case, but people can't drink anything. They can't drink sweeter styles if they're not being offered sweeter styles.
That's true, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you one question, which is whether Fourmint and Chenin are quite similar in a way. I mean, Fourmint is also capable of making lots of different styles, isn't it? From, as we've said, from dry through to Basso Essentia, right?
Yeah. They're very similar. Our interpretation, our understanding of what we want to translate from Chenin and from Fourmint, is Fourmint offers a lot of structure. got that backbone. That's what gives these asus such strength. But ferment alone can be complicated. So we believe that ferment needs a harsh value, maybe a little muscat to round out those edges. Rather than just have something that's kind of abrasive, where Chenin can just be on its own and have some fun. Yeah.
I know. I want to ask you one question, which is what do you think of South African Chenin? I mean, do you get to try them?
I do get to try them, and I love them. You know, I'm not, I love Chenin. When I drink Chenin, though, my analytical brain comes on. Right. So there is a part, if I'm being honest, I take a little bit less pleasure from drinking white wines because of that analytical side. And I would presume that it's the case for many a white producer, a white wine producer. But yeah, I love Chenin in all forms. And a couple years ago, or now more than a couple years ago, is first one that I went to and was in South Africa, I think in 22. There is, an international congress of Chenin.
Oh, you were there?
And I was there in South Africa, and then it was here in France, I think last year. And it's amazing because it just shows you how awesome a varietal it is. We were drinking Chenin from India, from China, and that's discovery, that's learning. So it's not about one is better than the other, because the circumstances and the varietals are all so different. Yeah. That to compare, it's just a personal preference.
It's unfair, yeah. Is there anywhere else do you like to make Chenin? I mean, do you the family look and think, hey, maybe we could acquire somewhere else, or is two enough? Two family estates?
No. I mean, and even the word acquire is so not applicable to our family style. It's not about that. We've got our hands full. And being, I explained why we got involved in Királyudvar and why we ended up here. People often ask, and it's not because of the potential. It's really the love and respect of what this winery represents. The story of humanity that it offers is something really beautiful that to us, in a sense, needed to be preserved. And so it's something that I take and my family takes very seriously, more than anything.
I like that. It's preservation as much.
And so we're not looking. So it's not about, we want to go make wines here and here, and it's a discovery thing. Yeah, that was sort of what Királyudvar was, but it's also, Tokaj was one of the oldest winemaking regions in the world. It was the wine of king, the king of wines, right? And so, and you feel that essence when you're there. And that's what's drawn us to these two very random places in the wine world, ultimately.
Yeah, they are, but they both make amazing wines. Final question for you is, how do you get away from wine? I've read that you like doing yoga in the Clos de Bourg vineyard. It must be a bit cold up there sometimes, is it? Or not?
Well, sometimes it is, and I've gotten a little bit away from that. In the winter, it's not all the time. I love a good puzzle, and I love a good audiobook. I've actually recently gotten back into watching a lot of different sports, but my most recent discovery is cycling. So I've become very into cycling. But yeah, and I do like to garden. So that's kind of, where it all comes from is the science side of things, but also, my maternal side is very green, have incredibly green thumbs.
I love that. Green thumbs are very useful when you're in charge of running a winery, right?
Yeah, it's for sure. Yeah.
Listen, Sarah, it's been brilliant talking to you. Amazing that you're doing this incredible thing in two places around the world. And what a great family story. I mean, you just kind of did it, as you said, out of love for these two places. Anyway, brilliant talking to you, and see you soon, I hope.
Thanks, Tim. Have a great day.
Well, I think we should all thank Sarah's parents for believing in those enriching vacations and taking that trip to Budapest. Next week on Cork Talk, my guest is the historian Kathy Burke, author of Wine, A Global History. Join me then. Thanks for listening to Cork Talk. If you want to read more reports, articles and tasting notes by me, go to my website, timatkin.com. You can also follow me on Twitter @timatkin and on Instagram @timatkinmw. See you next week.